Welcome to another foraging adventure. My name is Kyle, and today we are going to be harvesting some of the blossoms of this big leaf maple behind me. So it's early spring here in the Pacific Northwest, and as you can see in front of me, all the little buds of the maple tree are starting to produce flowers. And if you peel back, you will see there are lots of little tiny flowers starting to emerge. So the first thing you do before you go and harvest anything is you want to make sure you have properly identified the thing that you're going to harvest. So with big leaf maple, we are looking for opposite branching as one of our main identifiers. So if you'll notice here, you have this branch and this branch are coming out of the same spot. And if you slide up the branch, you'll notice these little nodes where there was once branches, and you can see one developing here and one that broke off here. So essentially it's like your arms coming out like this versus like this. The other thing you want to do is go ahead and reach down on the ground and pull up some of the leaves. So obviously it's early spring here and there aren't any leaves yet on the tree. But if we look down on the ground, we have our very obvious maple leaf. They typically have about 4 or 5 lobes, and of course it's called big leaf maple because the leaves are quite large. So now that we've identified our big leaf maple tree by the opposite branching, the big leaf maples on the ground, you could also take a closer look at the bark, and then as you start to get familiar with the flower, the little blossoms that are emerging, you'll see that it's obviously a maple tree. And here in the Pacific Northwest, how many maple trees do we have natively? 2. So you got a 50-50 chance, and they're both edible. Now, what we want to do is we don't want to just harvest any and everything. We're always looking for that optimal ripeness, right? Kind of like when you go to eat a pear, right? You don't want to eat it too soon when it's like really hard and, you know, kind of bitter, and you don't want to eat it when it's like melting in your hand. Look, we have lots of different stages. We have little buds that are still forming, and we have blossoms that are poking out, and we have blossoms all the way at the end that are fully out and starting to fill with delicious pollen. And so it's kind of more according to taste, but obviously I'm not going to harvest these little guys. I'm probably not going to harvest anything that's still in the bud. I'm going to look to harvest things that are poking out, and these are going to be more bitter greens. But as I work my way to these blossoms, these are going to be much more sweet tasting. So yeah, depending on what you like, you can go ahead and harvest. You can get a mixed batch of things and mix them up, and you can process them later when you get home. So we walked just a little bit further down the trail, and we found some more maple blossoms that are a little bit more ideal for harvesting. You can see they're a little bit more fully out of their shell, and these are gonna be a lot sweeter, right? So the early ones, so if you look in here, you can see that there's already some pollen developing on the lower blossoms. And these are much sweeter and less bitter than the other ones that we harvested. So depending on your taste, you can go with sweet, or you can go with a bit more bitter. Sweet, bitter. So one thing to always be mindful of when you're harvesting anything from nature is we want it to be a sustainable and a regenerative practice. Right, so if you look up close here, you will see that there are a bunch of little flower heads, All right, so we have all of these little flower heads. Those are the maple samaras, the little helicopters that you see flying around in the mid-summer to late fall. And so yeah, so each one of these is gonna have a multitude of seeds. So in my hand, I have potentially 100 seeds, and behind me, I have potential of millions of seeds. So again, I'm not gonna harvest all of these. I'm gonna take a small bounty to feed me for a few days and to mix in with some of the other greens that we'll be gathering this week. And so yeah, it's always just a good practice. A lot of people recommend, harvesting 1 in every 9. So if you look up and around, you see that still provides us and many others with lots of food. Another thing that I want to point out is that most, if not all, trees actually flower before they leaf. So you can see the little leaves here, right? So they're putting all of their energy into the flowers that are going to make the seeds that are going to help them reproduce. And the leaves come secondary to help build that lasting energy throughout the summertime. Once you get home, it's really important to process your plants right away, and to also just make sure that nothing else ended up in your harvest. So we have some stinging nettle and our big leaf maple blossoms. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate the blossoms from the protective buds, and we're going to discard these because they're not really edible or delicious. And so we'll just set those aside, and we're going to go ahead and just process all of these.